Hello, curious friends, and welcome to Building Your Best Brain. Today's podcast is super timely and honestly one of my favorite topics, and one topic that I find is really poorly understood, poorly explained, and a lot of people kind of look it over, including myself, which is the importance of mental rest. Once you get a handle on mental rest, kind of understanding what it is, how you show up in your life when you are not mentally well rested, like what does that actually look like? And then also how to implement it in a way that's easy and efficient, you truly become a mental ninja, is the best way to put it. And it's because your attention is gold. And in a world where everything is trying to grab our attention, be it the news, social media, just life, even in itself, right, is grabbing your attention and pulling you in different ways and producing thoughts and producing emotions. And basically, what happens is that a lot of energy is created, of course, in your mind, right? Your circuits are firing, your neurons are firing as a response to all of this. And it's honestly the quickest way to burnout that we don't talk about, because it feels, to some of us, I know it certainly feels that way with me, impossible to control our thoughts. There was a time where, I kind of misunderstood what being present really meant. And that's probably because in the spiritual world, right? So if you don't know my backstory, I am a neuroscientist. I'm finished my PhD. And in between my PhD and master's is where I discovered yoga. And really it was kind of a pivotal moment of my rewiring my brain journey. And so the word present, being present or having presence or being mindful kind of gets put into the spiritual bucket. And sometimes when things get put into a spiritual bucket, it doesn't feel tangible, it doesn't feel applicable, and it almost feels a little hard to grasp. But having like mental ninja control and being able to have mental rest is essentially that. It's the ability to be present. And so I'll take a moment to describe what it looks like when you're not mentally well rested. And this is something that, I've battled with in the past, and I have seasons of it in my life, including the season I'm in right now, where I'm finishing my PhD, where you basically can't stay on one topic for too long. And so for me, when I'm not mentally well rested, I have many different scripts going as I'm going through my day-to-day life. So my day-to-day life might not look terribly different, right? Like it might not look more stressful, right? Like I'm doing the same things I'm normally doing, right? Going to the gym, going to the lab, posting on social media. Nothing is actually physically changing in my day-to-day, which is why the brain is so interesting. But mentally, I have thoughts about other things while I'm doing my normal tasks, right? So some of those thoughts could be related to the past, right? Like past memories are coming up, they're kind of haunting you, you're replaying unpleasant moments. Another one could be thinking about the future, right? Also thinking about the future. Sorry, my cat, if you can't see, because I know some of you guys just listen to this, she's also curious about what mental unrest looks like. Thinking about the future, right? So that could even be the near future. So if you're doing a task and then you're thinking kind of what you need to do or want to do one or two tasks ahead, or projecting way far into the future, right? Like a year, 2 years, 5 years, decade, kind of thinking about what you want to do there, asking yourself questions, going through different scenarios. And then another is limiting beliefs or thoughts, right? So we have a set of thoughts that we often play on repeat, and we've probably been doing it our entire lives. It's incredible because we've been doing it our entire lives. And again, this is like all your fault. Like, how could you be thinking these things? Like, honestly, it's totally human that we, especially when things happen at a younger age, which for most of us is the case, we walk away from those experiences with certain thoughts about the world, certain thoughts about ourselves. And then the more that we tell ourselves these thoughts, the stronger the circuit gets. And it takes less external stimulation for the circuit to fire. So you kind of get into this like feed positive mechanism, right? Where like the more you fire it, the stronger it is, which means that it needs less stimulation from the outside world to fire. And so you're probably exhausted hearing this list. I'm honestly exhausted even saying it. And so you can imagine, right, if you're having your normal day where there isn't anything inherently stressful, but you have these thoughts, these ruminations, right, from many of these buckets kind of bopping around in your head, you could see how at the end of the day, you feel exhausted. And it's mental exhaustion. But what I think people mistaken this for is that it results in physical exhaustion. So our brain takes up 20% of our body's entire energy. And our brain communicates with our body, right? We have all these nerves that go down our spinal cord and innervate, our skin, our organs. And so if you're spending, you know, a lot of time in your day thinking about these things or having these thoughts go, even if you're not necessarily conscious of them, it can deplete you really quickly. And then often the things that you're maybe worrying about or trying to achieve or like trying to soothe with these thoughts, right? Especially ones around any of them, really, like around the past. Usually, if it's around the past, is because you don't want to repeat it for the future. If it's around the future, you're trying to just eliminate uncertainty so that you feel better and feel more safe. Um, and the negative self-talk or the old thoughts are likely like comforting and familiar and did serve you at one point in life. But what all these do, even though you may believe and your brain may believe like, oh well, we're protecting you from threats, right? Like this is a good thing, we're protecting you from threats, we're staying vigilant, this is how we're going to stay safe. But you being exhausted by the end of your day, halfway through your day, not having enough energy for yourself, not having enough energy for your partner, your family, your pets, for your friends, that is what's going to bite you in the butt. Like it's not, and it's something that is uncomfortable to realize, because a lot of these thoughts and questions, like they're all coming from a good place, and they give us, even though they might not feel the most pleasant, they do give us a sense of control. But with mental rest, I'll tell you what that kind of looks like if we had the same kind of day, what it would look like if you were mentally well rested. That is the ultimate control. That is the ultimate mental ninja move. And so I'll take a moment to describe what that looks like. And then, of course, we'll dive into ways to begin to build it, because it is a practice. It's not something that you snap your fingers and then you can automatically get into a mentally rested state. There are different ways to get into it, and I'll explain a little bit behind kind of the approaches and the science behind those approaches. Being mentally well rested is being present. Now, what does being present actually mean? Really, really good question. It means that as you go through your day, again, your normal, average, run of the mill day, you're able to focus on one task at a time. So your mental energy is no longer being split into all the thoughts. Most of it is being directed to whatever task you're doing. If you are not doing a task, right, like let's say you're commuting or you have a little bit of downtime, your body and mind feel relaxed. So your body feels relaxed. Your mind feels like it's actually taking a break without having any guilt, without having any shame, without thinking about, what you have to do in the next hour, 2 hours, year, 2 years. And it's able to really take a moment for itself relatively easily. You will likely feel a sense of pride and accomplishment for the things that you've done that day or for the interactions you've had that day because you're more present and you're not mentally draining yourself with other thoughts, feelings, emotions that are not relevant to what you're doing. It gives you more space to have positive emotions and to truly recognize and see all the great things you're doing, and the great things you're doing, yes, but also just how you're being, right? Like being proud of yourself for how you interacted with someone or how you handled a situation. We're very, very attached to like production and numbers and accomplishments and titles. And this is not completely on us, but it's just something that as humans in the society we have right now, I find we're very attached to those metrics. And that in itself is not a mental ninja. It's not a mental ninja move, right? The mental ninja move is focusing on the task at hand. Yes, there may be numbers involved, but you focusing on the task at hand and allowing yourself to mentally rest and be present will allow you to feel all the feelings associated with that task, especially pride and accomplishment, which honestly, I don't think we feel enough in today's day and age. Partially because there's so many potential reasons for that. That's a whole other topic, but a part of mental rest is the ability to develop a healthy pride for yourself. Like, how would you feel if at the end of your day, you could look at your day and go, wow, that was a great day. I'm proud of how I moved through my day. I'm proud of the things I did. I'm proud of how I interacted with people. I'm proud of how I took care of myself today. And you have energy for yourself at the end of the night, whether, yeah, it's time with your family, your partner, going out for a date or, doing an extra little side project that really lights you up and is a lot of fun. That's what mental rest provides. And you can feel it. What's really cool is you can feel it at the level of your body. So sometimes, mentally you can sense it, right? Because you're focusing better, you're having less of these thoughts, but your body will feel more relaxed because it's not in a hypervigilant state anymore. And when it's not in a hypervigilant state anymore, you're no longer in your fight or flight response and you're in your rest and digest response, your parasympathetic state. And this is where your body heals, right? This is where your body restores itself, where it protects its energy, replenishes its energy. And this is not to say that, stress is bad, because it's not, and it does has its place, but you trying to quell your stress, so trying to bring down your stress by thinking of all these scenarios and questions and future tripping to bring down your stress is increasing your stress. You are self-inflicting your stress. And I'm the queen of this, the self-inflicted stress. I totally get it. And it feels very uncomfortable to go the other way, to go the mental rest way, but it is the way of control. And it is a way to actually down regulate your stress at the level of your brain and your body, and is the way to go long term. If you want to, have a body and a brain that is built for your genius, that's built for your desires, that's built for the life that you want for yourself, right? I'm sure you don't want to come home exhausted every day, just doing your normal things and being like, but, how am I exhausted at the end of the day? I didn't do anything extra strenuous. There isn't anything inherently stressful going on in my life. You're the source of your stress. And the best part about you being the source of your stress is that you can be your antidote as well. And so we'll get into a few ways that I implement mental rest. There's a few tools that are like my absolute go-tos that are not often talked about, honestly, because I'm sure you hear, going on long, slow walks in nature, which is absolutely great. Meditating is also a great one, but sometimes they just don't quite cut it, depending on how kind of deep in our mental trains of thoughts with the trains of trains. We're at the train station. So there's a few others that I want to include that you can start playing around with today to begin to get that mental ninja control and really achieve the mental rest that you dream of. And so this is not to say that, don't do your walks, don't do your meditation, don't do your breath work. Those are all amazing. Definitely keep those in rotation when you're finding yourself getting worked up or in kind of activated in your stress response. But here's some others that really help when it comes to the mental, when it comes to not being able to quiet your mind down. The first one I love is the brain dump. And so the brain dump is essentially taking a notebook, a journal, and let's say you're trying to do a task, or you're even trying to meditate. Sometimes I'll do this before my meditation, and you have a million thoughts going at once. Just writing them all down. Just writing them all down. It could even be in bullet points, just kind of emptying out your brain of whatever thoughts, lists, tasks, whatever it may be, and then putting it away. Doing your meditation, maybe a little bit of breath work, and getting back to your tasks. And this helps because this action of writing it down basically helps you not feel like you have to hold it in your brain anymore. It's somewhere safe. You don't have to be hypervigilant. You don't have to think about it all the time. And it's essentially been released. Another great one is what I call the thought box. And so this one is more of a mental visualization, but if you're kind of feel like you're juggling a lot mentally, this is a really nice one. And I have a recording of this visualization, so feel free to leave a comment if you want access to it. It's free. But you basically pick your box. And if you're a really visual person, I invite you to use a lot of detail because that'll help the efficiency of this activity. So you think of your box, you think of the color, the size, the texture, all that. You open your box, and then almost like they're little, for me, it's funny, I don't know exactly what they look like. They almost look like little potatoes. My thoughts almost look like little potatoes. They're kind of like little kind of rectangle ball things, or like little blocks. You visualize kind of just taking them out of your head and putting them in the box, and you kind of see, all right, so like this thought is, my next PhD experiment. This thought is content I want to create for Synaptic Sylvie. This thought is what I'm having for dinner. This thought, and you just kind of like, you put them in your box. You close your box, and then you store your box somewhere. And so for me, my box is always in this cellar. The cellar's kind of like, and you can feel free to use my location, we got lots of room, is in a hill, and it has one of those doors, kind of like the Wizard of Oz, right? Dorothy, like in her home, right? She has kind of the doors that open up on a side of a hill, and in that hill is her cellar. And there's a little dusty shelf that I put my box, and then I get out of the cellar and I close the door. And then I'll either do like my breath work or meditation, or I'll just go back to the task, or I'll go for a walk. I have a friend that her box is actually more of a treasure chest, and she like takes it out to sea. But the idea is that it's somewhere safe again. It's somewhere safe and it's tucked away. And you don't have to be constantly thinking about it anymore because it's not going anywhere. It's just not with you right now, if that makes sense. And the last one, which is particularly important if you're finding that you're very emotionally aroused by all your thoughts, and not the good arousal. Not that anything is, and it's funny that I say this for this section, not that anything's all good or bad, but if you're finding that you're experiencing a lot of negative emotions when it comes to these thoughts, these questions, then this one is a good one, which is to neutralize your thoughts. And so writing down your thought or scenario or memory or future tripping question at the top of a page, and then creating a T-chart where you have all of the cons, right? So all the kind of negative aspects about this versus all of the pros. And so now you might be thinking, well, is it possible to find pros to the things that are bringing up so much negative emotions? And the truth is yes. And I will give you one as an example that I've actually had to do quite recently, which is a part of me and a part of my thoughts around finishing my PhD is the fear that I won't be able to finish it. This fear that, I could come to the end of my program and not have a PhD. And this is like a really deep seated thing that, I have worked through and I continue to work through. It's one of those things, right, with our thoughts and our really strong circuits that, we do experience relief, right? We continue to work on them and we do experience relief, and we just kind of hit new levels of addressing it. So this is another level that I'm addressing it. And I go, okay, all right, so I'm afraid that I'm not going to finish my PhD and that I'm going to finish these 4 or 5 years with nothing. And I had to look at all of the cons, which were very easy for me to write down. And then I wrote down all the pros to finishing a 4 or 5 year program with no PhD. And I found some, and I'll share them with you now. One of them is that all the skills that I've gained in these 4 or 5 years don't go away if I don't become a doctor at the end of it, right? So like all of the experiments, so all of the technical skills, right? The experiments I can do, the techniques that I can do, all of the quote unquote soft skills that I've learned, right? So things related to mental flexibility, patience, giving presentations, being able to design a good experiment, all of that is still the case. Whether I finish with a diploma or not, or a certificate or diploma. Another is that, sometimes PhDs get a bad rep, right? Like sometimes people hear that you're an academic and automatically have certain assumptions about you that are not positive. And so I started listing them this way and really starting to neutralize this thought. And what it does is that it helps release me from replaying this thought over and over again because it's not a threat anymore. I've neutralized the threat, which means that my brain doesn't have to constantly be hypervigilant, thinking of all the ways to do all the things, because what if we don't get a PhD at the end? I will be fine if I don't get a PhD at the end of this. And the joke of this is, or the part that's, I guess, paradoxical about neutralizing some of these thoughts, is that you end up freeing up energy. You end up thinking more clearly, being more productive, and more likely to get the thing that you're worried you're not getting. And so this will be a fun episode to come back to when I do get my PhD and to reflect on kind of the full circle moment. But I just wanted to share that example with you because it can come off, when I say neutralizing your thoughts, like toxic positivity, like, nothing bad can happen to you. Like, if you just think positively, everything's going to be fine. And it's not that. But thinking really critically and negatively and being hard on yourself all the time is not it either. And it's not going to help either. It's going to keep you in that place of being hypervigilant. And then you're not going to be the mental ninja you want to move through your day with presence, energy, focus, and just more resource when you implement mental rest, which honestly, I probably do every day or every other day. And I'll continue to do that for as long as I need to because it works. And if you have a brain that has been hypervigilant for a very long time, doing these things frequently, which take 5, 10, 15 minutes, are honestly complete game changers, and they teach your brain what to do when those thoughts come up. So there are moments in my day now where a thought will come up, and because I've neutralized it already, I can neutralize it in the moment and move on. I don't need to take out my notebook. I don't need to sit down and meditate. I don't need to go for a walk. I don't need to do breath work right away. But it didn't happen right away. It happened after days, weeks, months of doing this kind of practice, of implementing and being unapologetic about implementing mental rest. And it's not selfish, and you do have time. And it's not selfish because days that I decide that I'm going to push it off or I'm going to do it later, it bites me every time. And often, everybody's a bit different, but I am a very compassionate person. I deeply, deeply care about people. I find people fascinating, and I genuinely want everybody to do well in life, whatever version of that looks like for them. And so I have this habit of putting other people before myself. So maybe, I know that I need mental rest. Like I know, I could really benefit from neutralizing this thought right now. But instead, I go do an experiment for a colleague, or somebody messages me on Synaptic Sylvie with a problem and I DM them first, or, oh, but I really want to spend time with my partner tonight. So I'm going to prioritize making dinner and then doing it after dinner. And often you don't show up fully as yourself, as your fully resourced self. And it will bite you in other ways, whether it's getting in an argument with your partner or making a mistake on an experiment, or, not giving somebody the best advice because you just, were not fully present. And so it may feel uncomfortable, but this is how mental control is possible. Putting yourself first, using the mental rest tools, and using them often. And if you need motivation, think of the version of yourself that went through their entire day not having scattered extra thoughts and only having thoughts in the present moment, focusing on one task at a time, being proud of everything that you're doing, and coming home at the end of the day with energy to spend it however you want to spend it. Think of that day and think of that having that day straight for a week, a month, a year, and what that would do for your life. You guys are awesome. If you're all the way at the end of this, congratulations. This information is not it's not difficult, but it's not easy, right? Like I said, it's a bit of a shift and it can be uncomfortable to start implementing it. If you want the thought box recording, please leave a comment below and don't be shy to reach out to me on Synaptic Sylvie to let me know how this implementation is going and if you would like any support, especially with the neutralizing. I know that one can be a bit tricky if you've never done it before. And I look forward to learning together on the next episode. Have a wonderful day and see you next time.